Aloha, it's Antonio with hypnosisproductreviews.com. Today I've got a very special guest for the Hypnosis Product Reviews podcast. I'm interviewing Jason Linett of VirginiaHypnosis.com. We're going to talk about HypnoThoughts Live and his the method to his madness of how he does so incredibly well with his business. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing fantastic. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. And I like the that little backdrop you got over there.
Yeah, recording here in my basement today. It's January at the time we're recording this, and we're in the early stages of a blizzard right now. So rather than shooting at my office, I took the show home.
You know, it'd be good. You know how sometimes with Hangouts you can do the little bits of snow falling from the top.
Yeah,
that would be fitting.
I'll just take the laptop outside.
Yeah, I don't know if I would do that. Like I moved from Michigan 8 years ago, and I would never go back. I cannot do the cold weather. But you know, if this I don't know if this will soothe your soul a little bit, or if this will make you feel better about your weather. We're at the point it's a little chilly. I'm gonna have to start wearing socks with my sandals.
Oh, that is so rough out there. I know.
Yeah, it's rough. So let's talk about HypnoThoughts.
Yes.
You've been going for the past 2 years, right?
Right.
What's your opinion been of HypnoThoughts?
It's been an excellent convention. I mean, it's why I'm going back year after year at this point. What's really unique about it is that you have a lot of people who are there that you typically don't run into at really any other hypnosis event. So it's created this environment of people that are really there to share, really there to interact, and just the style of the event that it's now become of you have a nice wide mixture of people that are either top of their game, working full-time professional. There's a really nice stage hypnosis presence as well, which you don't get at a lot of events, a lot of groups. And then also a fair number of people who are relatively brand new to it, thanks to being that it's attached to the htlive2016 website. So it's through that interaction. And I mean, it's really some of those little nuances that are different about it that pay off a massive dividend. So the fact that the lunches are included as part of the event, it becomes this experience of you've got your food and then to look around and go, it's either this table with all these people that I already know, or here's a group of people I have no idea who the hell they are. Yeah, let's go meet some new people. So it's that environment where you're really there for that event and you're really there for that experience. And then again, you can't beat going to Las Vegas. That's always fun.
Yeah, as long as you remember everything.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
The thing I like about HypnoThoughts is, the first time I went to Vegas was for HypnoThoughts 3 years ago. My girlfriend, I had never been, so she told me, she said, "Hey, we can go there. You can go there for your conference, and we can have some vacation time." So she told me, she's like, "Oh, you have to have a minimum of 6 days in Vegas." Oh, no, it's a bad idea. You don't want 6 days in Vegas unless you're in class every single day, because you get burned out quickly. The thing I love the most about it is it's almost like a homogenous kind of community. You got, like you said, you got people from all walks of life, and it's very welcoming. It's not like a pyramid kind of thing. You got the person at the top, you got the gurus with their lowly admirers. Everybody's on the same level.
Yeah, that's one of those big points of that it's everyone coming in from all different experiences. And again, that sharing of information, that interaction as well. Yeah, you're right about the number of days in Vegas. My wife and I just did our anniversary out there back in November. And admittedly, it was one of those trips that was dictated by, hey, if we fly home on Tuesday, it's like $500 cheaper. So let's stick around an extra day. But it's the last day. I was like, okay, we get it already. Then again, I remember the last couple of years in Vegas, it's been like 105. So staying inside of the Orleans was a very nice choice.
Okay, is that where you guys stayed when you did anniversary?
We stayed at the Planet Hollywood this time.
Okay, and that's a little more upscale. It probably smells better. You know, the funny thing is, I clear my throat. You probably remember I smoked with this last convention. I actually quit. And thank you, Scott, and everybody there that was giving me trouble, like Steve Ray, Johnny Dupree, everybody that gave me jabs for smoking. I actually quit conference, and so it's been what, I think 5 months since I smoked.
Nice, congrats.
So it's gonna be Thanks. It's gonna be interesting to be there and actually the zombies playing slot machine, just smoking cigarette after cigarette. So it'll be interesting. Now, so I'm sure that you actually have some talks coming up. I'm sure you have. You probably have some of the regular talks, and I'm sure you either have a post or pre-conference. You want to kind of dive into those?
Yeah, sure. As part of the actual convention, I'm going to be doing 2 presentations. One of them is, I say to my fellow copywriting buddy, all about hypnotic headlines. And it's specifically all about how do you actually come up with headlines that grab people's attention. And notice that for right now, I'm just talking about just the headline of what the title of a piece of content would be. So realize that this could be a blog post, this could be an ebook, this could be a product, this could be a webinar, this could be really anything. But it comes down to the origin of it was a little phrase that I use with my students that comes about from the statement of nobody wants to sign up for your newsletter. And you look at so many different websites that have the little opt-in box, sign up for our newsletter. And it's just not a sexy offer. It's not something that people get
news
excited
isn't
about.
sexy.
Yeah, I'm not saying that your newsletter content is either good or bad. I'm not even touching that. But it's such a weak offer to say, sign up for my newsletter. When, for example, I welcome you to look at some of the content on my websites. On the Stop Smoking page over at virginiahypnosis.com, there's the Kick the Habit special report, 7 steps towards successful smoking cessation. And I could not find more S's to put in that title. Over on Work Smart Hypnosis, there's the 10-day hypnosis business challenge, which the pitch of that is it's 10 days of videos, 10 days of very specific action steps to grow your business. And what happens is when you make that headline, when you make that specific title, something that immediately sums up what someone's going to get and what's the value they're going to receive, and really also convince them as to why they want it, that's going to begin to fill up your mailing list and build that relationship with your potential clients even faster. So it's a 1-hour presentation called Hypnotic Headlines. And inside of that, I'll be sharing some just dirty, rotten, simple strategies that I use to come up with these things instantly. Where are the places that I go to get inspiration? And also specifically, how am I going to use that information? And it's really a place that you're creating this almost this data bank, this what we call in the marketing world a swipe file of resources that here's some time where I can begin to produce some content, and even listening to my clients, listening to my students, what are those things that they need? And I can filter it through the formula that I'm going to be sharing with you at this workshop. It's a 1-hour event to then begin to create that content that then people will actually interact with. So that's Hypnotic Headlines. The other one, I'm sure has a very fancy title that's escaping me at the moment. I think it actually might be Hypnotic Webinars. And previously, the last 2 years at HypnoThoughts Live, I've done 2 presentations on selling online through online videos. And if you want to see the really best example of this, head over to virginiahypnosis.com. Nearly every single page on that website has a video, which the cool thing about that, and I want you to listen to the embedded hypnotic language inside of this, it's a great way for my clients to meet me before they even come into my office, which is building that presupposition that they're going to be coming into my office. It's a method that they're building rapport with me without having to be there. So it's interesting how many other people would talk about strategies for booking clients, all about schedule that live consultation, have them come into your space and talk with them there, or do that phone consultation. And in some other trainings, I've heard people say, keep them on the phone for like 45 minutes so they feel like they've got to know you. I do all of my selling for my clients on the phone. And as much as I'm an outsourcer, as much as I work with a many-pronged virtual team of people, here's my video guy, here's my podcast editor, I still take my own calls. Because of the videos, what that accomplishes, I'm able to convert that incoming call in a matter of 7 or 8 minutes. So it's efficient and it's fun because I've set that up. So in the last 2 years, I've done 2 different presentations on online videos, and we're going to some next level stuff this year with a program all about webinars. webinars, specifically online classes, online interactions with your potential clients, or for the trainers out there, your students as well. The magical statement is the world has never been as small as it is now. It is so easy to get in front of a larger audience. And webinars that I've done in the last several years, here's one that converted $10,000 and plus in the first hour after it wrapped up. Here's one I did in August last year that by the time it wrapped up had produced more than $30,000 of income. There's systems that I've been making use of to even book my clients by way of webinar, taking that stuff I would typically do on the phone and repackaging it into a webinar format. And what I'd mention here, just because some people would fall into that self-limiting belief that, oh, it's going to be impersonal. It's going to be not as effective for someone to be interacting with a digital version of me. When the fact is my business has never been as high as it is right now, because it's something that people want. They can have that interaction with me 2, 3 in the morning when I'm asleep. They can have that interaction. They can go to replays. They can have this interaction. So understand, with all these technical things that are possible nowadays, my game is always, how do I provide a better experience for my clients whenever I'm pulling myself out of the equation? They're actually getting more of me because I don't have to be the one there to do it. So it's actually going to be a 2-hour presentation all about webinars. And I'm going to be teaching you the exact formula in terms of how I outline, I don't say script because it's just a rough outline, how I outline out my process of how I'm going to talk about the webinar, how I actually make that very magical transition from providing content into here's the actual sales message in such a way that the viewers stay on and they hit the button and they pay. So that's going to be a 2-hour presentation. Plus, we can also chat about Hypnotic Business Mastery, which is a 2-day pre-convention offering I'm going to be doing prior to the event as well.
Interesting. Now, before we get into the pre-talk, would you be up for a little game?
Oh yeah.
On the fly game. Okay, perfect. So what I've been actually doing lately, I don't know if you've been seeing this. You know that for copywriting and marketing, it's best to have a conversational kind of tone to it. Because if you have real formal structure, it's boring. So one thing I've been doing is, I don't know if you can actually see it, I've been taking a bunch of conversational sayings that we use every day, like go through the roof, let's see, get your feet wet, etc. And I'll write like 3-4 sentences with it to kind of ingrain it. Would you be up? I'm going to maybe give you a couple of these and see if you can come up with a headline for some kind of product, just to show people how easy it is to actually come up with headlines. You up for that?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let me see. Actually, this is a good one. Here's a saying: smoke and mirrors. So let's say you're trying to get somebody to sign up for a product about rapid inductions. So I guess find a way to use smoke and mirrors in a headline.
Yeah, and let's do one thing too. Let's address it for those that one of the cool things about HypnoThoughts Live is that people who are there are not just practitioners, they're also fellow trainers as well, teaching other people how to do hypnosis. So let's be sure that we hit one that's going to be like the rapid induction one, which would be great for the training community. But then also let's also hit one in terms of like a specific topic that someone for, seeing more clients or wanting to book more clients would be interested in as well. So we'll hit that one second. So smoke and mirrors. The cool thing about using a phrase like that is it's an attention grabber. It's that pattern interrupt that they're going to see that phrase. So I'll give you an example first of a weak headline. Click here to learn more about rapid inductions, instant inductions, which is very much kind of in the style of sign up for my newsletter, as opposed to looking at motivational strategies. People are either moving towards pleasure or away from pain, or they're in some sort of propulsion system more tilted to one side. So let's perhaps play the game of away from pain. And to fold it into the format of headline that I found to be one of the most effective, learn the 3 techniques that will take the smoke and mirrors mystery out of instant inductions. So to give people the expectation that they're going to leave with actionable strategies. That's what people want most often. Or I try to stay away from a little bit too much of a clickbait style interaction, which the possibility in that respect would be instant inductions, removing the smoke and mirrors from instant inductions. 3 simple techniques to increase your effectiveness. And that's going to grab people's attention.
Brilliant. Now I'm going to actually add one level to it. I actually thought about when you started. I don't want to interrupt. So I'm going to give you, I'll give you another, God, there's a lot of them. I'll give you another one this time. So if you want to do one for that covers professionals, non-professionals, and even a headline to encourage people to go to the convention, to go to HypnoThoughts. Yeah. Let's see. No holds barred. That's a really common one.
Oh, nice. Nice. So let's just do a standard weight loss client that we have the goal of getting a weight loss client. Sound good?
Yep.
Yeah. And I'd mention just as a side note, as you're looking at various options for learning, I'll give you a quick backstory. That the thing that really motivated a lot of what I do nowadays, I'm in the community talking about growing your business, doing hypnosis. And the thing that really motivated a lot of what I now do was out of frustration, that I would go to various events, meetups, conventions, interactions online. And it was the scenario of the blind leading the blind. There were people giving each other feedback on their business cards, but neither of them were actually seeing clients. So there's something to be said about making sure that you're learning from someone who is currently doing the things that they're teaching you, as opposed to that example of, well, I attended a workshop one time that I asked the question about, hey, you were talking about this strategy. How'd that work for you? And he actually responded, well, I've never actually done it, but I've done research on it. You know, you want to have, it's how I position myself as the hypnosis business guinea pig. I'm not going to actually teach you things that I have not done myself. So I give you that as a preamble because a lot of my strategy as a hypnotherapist working with weight loss or smoking clients, or really any category, is to reduce things down to the simplicity. I'm really of the mindset that one of the biggest things that has to be addressed in almost any session you work with is the fact that you chances are have someone in front of you who has spent most of their lifetime hypnotizing themselves to believe the issue is too big to be overcome. So you have that as a component of the change process. Someone like who's also going to be at HypnoThoughts, Ted Robinson, who does a whole EFT process around breaking through just resistance to change, not just the actual change itself, but also the resistance to the change. And I love that Ted does that. So from that perspective, I'd mention that again, bringing weight loss, bringing smoking, my stop smoking protocol with my clients, it's very customized to the individual. It hinges upon how much hypnotic phenomenon do you have to create. So you can actually look at the client and say, look, this is one of the few times in your life to be successful. All you have to do is nothing. And here's these parts of your life where you're doing absolutely nothing. It's a statement that if you just say it consciously to somebody, it's kind of offensive. There's a comedian, Maria Bamford, who has a whole bit about people who give bad advice. Oh, single people. That's easy. Just, pair up. Problem solved. You're welcome. So there's something to be said about breaking it down. But inside of the hypnotic, she's a comedian, so she tells the story of dating a very confident guy, and the line was, "Oh, you're a comedian? Yeah, I see what you're doing, traveling around doing all those clubs. Yeah, if I would do that, I wouldn't do it like you. I'd be like Jerry Seinfeld and do like a big time NBC show and for like 8 years and then just coast." Something magical about that advice. So again, my weight loss, my stop smoking process hinges around breaking it down to the simplicity, breaking it down to just how easy you let this now become. So I'm working in my mind to fit the no holds barred response, a no holds barred strategy to eating less and feeling better. And there's a weight loss example, a no holds barred strategy. So I'm going to use it as that punch up word to apply to a strategy which it's the game. What I'm doing here is a task of tell rather than show. I'm highlighting the thing that you're going to get, but now you have to actually interact with the content, whether it's a download, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, whether it's whatever it might be, to now find out what the strategy is. And that's where I'm going to then show you how to do this. So attending the convention, that's a fun one, with no holds barred. You want to stick with no holds barred, or you want to try another one?
Yeah, let's try no holds barred, see what you can pull off.
Yeah. And I'm not really falling into a away from, so I'm wanting to, no holds barred usually is a away from style of strategy. I'm trying to spin it right now to see if I can go towards a positive. So let's stick with the away from. Attend the HypnoThoughts live convention, a no holds barred style of event to learn from people, to borrow a Michael Elner-ism, to learn from people who disagree with each other.
Let me see. I'll see if I can pull one. I think I had one off the top of my head. You know, they do the right versus wrong headline saying, "You think weight loss is hard, right? Wrong. Blah 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 blah." So, see if I can get this. So, you think every hypnosis convention is the exact same thing, right? Wrong. Discover HypnoThoughts and the no holds barred approach to bringing the whole community together. Blah,
Only
blah,
if
blah,
we can
blah.
have the graphic and the imagery of Macho Man Randy Savage behind it. Wasn't there a wrestling movie in the 80s called No Holds Barred with
Zeus,
Roddy Piper, and
who's that black guy, the big guy? Zeus, I think his name was.
I forget his real name. Yeah.
Yeah, he obviously wasn't Zeus.
Which, for those of you watching this at home or wherever you're interacting with this content, the real takeaway from this moment with Antonio and I just playing with this is kind of the feeling that you should be bringing to your business. For those of you that fall into that game of, I'm really not a business person, I don't like selling, I don't want to force, you see he and I are just kind of playing here. And whenever there's a question about, should I do this strategy? Should I do that strategy? Should I advertise here? Should I promote there? The answer to everything is always test it out. Test it for yourself. What works in one area for one individual may be different for another individual somewhere else. So it's about learning some systematic ways of thinking through the process to then fit it, because the way that I do it, the way that Antonio does it, may be different from the way that you do it. And that's exactly how it should be. So your potential clients, your potential students, your potential whatever they may be, have that ability now to learn more about your style and your character. I'd share that the quote, no holds barred statement is one that I typically would not use inside of my content, just doesn't fit within it. Now that I've said that, I'm going to try to find a way to make it work in the next week. And it's just that game of playing with it and letting it be fun. Not to bring the gambling metaphor into it, but there are things that I've invested in terms of my business over the years that someone would say, wow, that's a lot of money to spend on that. Yet I'm thinking of one specific strategy that I know when I did it, for every $1 I put on the table, I made back 37. And if I could find a table like that in Vegas, I probably would just sit there all day and just play the game over and over.
I didn't tell you the first year, you know, like anytime you do hypnotic interaction, you should usually have an outcome. Now, I was just having fun. We're sitting at a roulette table, and this lady asked me what I do, and I told her I was there for the conference, and she told me the usual, oh, you know, I had a friend that tried to hypnotize me, but it didn't work, you know, the wah, wah, wah. So I was like, okay, I didn't say let me just try something. So I was having a beer, not really thinking about possible repercussions. That's why I'd never done this after. So I asked her if, I just explained how hypnosis is kind of like daydreaming, said that kind of daydream, or if she, at the table when she's working, she said, oh yeah. I'm like, well, what causes this to happen? She said, well, when people start playing with their chips, I started thinking about my kids and blah, blah, blah. I could see her eyes getting glossy. So I took my chips, I'm like, just rifling my chips, kind of using some different kind of real hypnotic language. Next thing I know, there's this guy came on the table, sunglasses. I think he was from like Eastern Bloc. I think he was speaking Lithuanian or something. Came up, threw $100 on the table, and then she passes out the chips. She spins a wheel, and a few seconds later, she just catches herself. She's like, "Oh my god, I can't believe I did it!" Stops the wheel. She gave him my colored chips. So she was obviously just just daydreaming. And then she's like, I've never done that. I looked, I was like, my brother looked at me, he's like, and he knew what I was doing. He's like, no more. So I mean, that was my little story of an oopsie.
Though I'd highlight one thing
So
inside of that, which, and this is more of a practical technique type thing, though inside of the Business Mastery pre-convention, I'll be talking in detail about how I do my selling by phone in such a way that I've eliminated my live consult. I am only ever in my office when I'm getting paid now or when I'm doing something like this. I'd mentioned just a little bit of a reframe that I've brought to the process that has really bumped up the success with my clients. And it's to take that moment and completely eradicate the belief system that either the hypnosis worked or it didn't work. And this is something that I think if we all did this as practitioners, those of us working with clients, though this is also a part of my stage hypnosis presentation as well, not in the amount of detail I'm about to give you, but very often hypnosis falls into this category where people go, oh, it either worked for me or it didn't work for me. And what I simply explained, the definition of hypnosis, you'll recognize the Dave Ellman reference. The definition of hypnosis is that it's the bypassing of the critical factors of the mind. It's that automatic response in spite of things you're already aware of. So you're driving your car, thinking of everything other than driving, and you still end up at home. You're watching a movie and you know everything up there is fiction. It's a story, they're actors, yet you still get swept up in the story. And then I personalize it to the individual. So perhaps, like, you know for a fact you don't want to be smoking anymore, and yet there you are lighting up the next cigarette and buying a case of them. Congratulations, you're already doing hypnosis. I get to show you how to do it better. So recognize that hypnosis is simply a tool. It's a technique. And as funny as this sounds, you can't go to Home Depot, buy a hammer, save the receipt, wait for the next day and go back and try to return it by saying, this thing doesn't work, I need a new one. They laugh at you. So you're still the driver in the car. I'm just the GPS helping you to get there faster, helping you to get there in a much more efficient way. So understand this is something that both of us are doing together. It's a tool that we are making use of. And I'm comfortable making this statement. Those people who are ready to make this change, who make use of the process that I share with you, and even make use of the techniques that I teach you, that's the group of people that are wildly successful. I'm also comfortable with this statement. Those people who rarely, occasionally, maybe leave this process and they're not quite as far along as they'd like to be, I can say it politely, they're not blaming the hypnosis. And I let that statement just kind of land. And what that does is, while we do have a lot of magical qualities inside of the hypnosis process, and hypnotizewithconviction.com, it's a product I've got just about creating hypnotic phenomenon. As much as I do that, and there is a magical part of the process, I'm still of the firm belief that the client actually doing their part of the process is just as important. And that phrasing really gets the point across where, I mean, here's an example this week of my client this morning, massively successful. It was our second appointment, hasn't smoked at all. The stress was gone. She goes, I haven't felt the clarity of my shoulders not being around my ears in a few years. That was nice. So she did great. Here's a guy who cut back dramatically after the first session, so he's still happy, yet he is now self-identifying already without me having to reframe what he can now do differently in the week ahead to be more successful. So it brings that ownership back to the individual, which in many ways makes our process even more effective, because again, it goes back to that metaphor that they're still driving the car. I'm just the GPS helping you to get there even faster.
love that metaphor.
And I tell you what, we'll make a resource available to people. I'll actually get all that language transcribed. This doesn't exist yet, so give me a day or two before you put this up, Antonio. We'll do worksmarthypnosis.com/Hawaii, because you're in Hawaii. So if you just type that in, that'll bring you over to a page, and I'll make the transcript of that little segment available, because it's scripted out for me now at this point. And it's just the most cleanest and just the most concise and effective way I've found to really get it across to the client that they have a responsibility inside of the process too.
It's funny when you were going through that that little thing that you use. I'm sure you've used that quite a bit. So it just comes out really smooth now. I could I could almost picture myself being a client. I could kind of feel like a shift in my chest. If I had been a client, been like, oh, it's so I'd realize it's it's kind of like a tango. It's a two-person process.
This is a dance, and both of us are leading.
Exactly. Actually, you don't want me. You don't want me dancing in the real context. What?
You don't want me either.
Yeah, you're a little too short for me. You'd have to stand on my shoes. Now let's see. Okay, all jokes aside, so now you have. I don't think we've covered. You've got your pre-talk. I'm sorry, not your pre-talk. Is it a pre-conference or post?
It's pre. It's going to be the Tuesday, Wednesday prior to the convention this year. It's called Hypnotic Business Mastery, and the subtitle is The Six-Figure Blueprint for Your Success. You know, we're told in hypnosis, we're told especially in the NLP models, to model excellence. And inside of it, there's a couple of components to highlight here. The first point is that you've heard Antonio and I talk about a couple of technological type things here. Whether you're the technical wizard, computer genius or not, this content will apply. Because at its core, the main thing that's going to be taught is how to navigate that client, that potential person who is interested in your service, whether it's sessions, whether it's shows, whether it's training, whether it's a product. It's about navigating them from that place of curiosity, just that first place of visibility where they know this thing now exists, to that place now of, here's my credit card number, I'm going to sign up for this thing, whether it's sessions, shows, whatever it might be. So it's how, while there's a lot of really cool technical tools that sure make life a whole lot easier. I mean, I'm sitting in Virginia, you're sitting in Hawaii, and we're having this conversation. The world has become a lot smaller. Most of the content is going to begin with just the basic principle of how to actually navigate that sales process, which, as a side note, as much as I'm at hypnosis conventions, I'm also going to sales and marketing conventions. I'm also attending business trainings. And it turns out we're all talking the same language. The motivation it takes to bring someone from that place of curiosity to point of sale is oddly similar to the point of challenge to now that position where they've now solidified the change. So the more I learn about sales, marketing, and even persuasion, the better of a hypnotist, the more effective I've actually become. So while this is a class specifically on the business strategies, there's some side effects of actually learning how to navigate people through that process, to recognize where they are in that sequence and then bring them along for the ride to that point that's the most ethical for them. So I always like to balance things out in terms of active and passive strategies for our business. So active strategies, this would be some of the tactics that maybe you're already familiar with. Going out and giving live talks, going out and doing some sort of business networking, getting out into your community and talking about hypnosis, which this is the one method that I used, that when my local community of already established hypnotists with 12 years of experience, when I opened up Virginia Hypnosis, were telling me that, oh, it's your first year, you're really not going to see a lot of clients and people probably won't send you referrals. I had a packed schedule in my first month. So recognize that you might be sitting there. Some people might be thinking, oh, I've already done that before. Wait till you see the strategies that I've used to get everybody in that group on a mailing list, to continue a relationship, to build value for these people, and to make them want to actually learn more about what I can do. Rather than the old, I'll say it, the old stupid game of I'll be in the back of the room handing out business cards. You know, maybe you've done that stuff before and they fed you lunch. I go and I make business out of it. So these are active strategies, which admittedly, this is the fastest category of work that you can do to make money come in tomorrow. So to cover the strategies of that, what you'll really learn from that content, though, and the applications of how I spin those strategies to make them even more effective, then immediately feeds over to these things that, understand, first of all, passive income is an absolute lie, because anything passive begins with a lot of active work in the beginning. So, but these active strategies train us now to do these passive strategies. So, I mean, here's a day like today that I'm in session with this woman at 10 o'clock this morning, and I checked my email after the session's wrapped up, and here's a person who's bought a product. Here's a person who signed up for this class we're talking out in Vegas. And here's a person who signed up for a certification class. And that's a fun way of thinking about things. I've made money while I was making money. So to build these streams, and my personal hero, Ron Popeil, he would have his Showtime rotisserie grill. He'd baste the chicken. He'd put it in the oven. He'd close the door. He'd hit the button, and the audience would shout out, "Set it and forget it." So to learn these passive strategies of how to make your business work for you, it's that balance of working in your business, but also on your business. And for the first time in a public environment, I'll be teaching you the strategies to do some of the things like I've done of actually producing, basically repackaging the content of maybe what you do with your clients in such a way that now it's a product you can sell all over the world. I have students now in France, in India, in Australia, and all over the world. I have clients now I did a Skype session. I think this is legal there, so maybe I should edit. Skype session with a guy in Dubai yesterday. So the world has become so much smaller. So the technology behind making this stuff work, in the active strategies, this would be seeing clients, doing shows, all the information will carry over. But dollars for hours gets old after a while. Dollars for hours becomes laborious. At one point, suddenly you've got a job. And to have that ability where, I say this as a teasing point to people who used to be in the career I was in before, friends of mine who are still working that, where they're sending me photos where they're working New Year's Eve and they take a break for 10 minutes to count down the ball and then they go back to work. And as a little smartass, I text back and go, wow, I take weeks off at a time now. And the ability to replicate myself in such a way. So the Hypnotic Business Mastery course is going to be a match for that person who maybe just got certified recently and wants to know how to get started. Because even the applications of how to find office space is very similar to how we actually work with outsourcers. So I've been cracking a joke recently about the birthday party magician who also does balloon animals. And hey, Antonio, 9-year-old birthday boy, I can make you any animal you want as long as it looks like a dog or a snake. When you start to recognize these systematic applications of how our business is built, understand, and this is going to break through, I hope, to some people, even right now, the issue is very rarely the platform. The issue is the strategy. So the strategy, some people would say print advertising is dead. Well, with the right strategy, you can spin it for a whole lot of income. There are some people who, and I've met them, they say, oh, I did Facebook advertising and I dropped a couple of $1,000s and it didn't do anything. And Facebook is my good friend nowadays. I'm doing enough that actually today I now officially have my own dedicated representative at Facebook. Zuckerberg, hey, how are you? No, it's someone else. So the ability to reach any size audience. The classic example would be that you can target anything. If you want to target people who like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in Phoenix, Arizona, you can now position yourself in front of that audience. People who would say Google AdWords doesn't work. Well, the platform is just the platform. It comes back to the strategy. So it's a blueprint is what you're going to be getting inside of this course, because you're going to learn the actual strategies and the specific case studies of what I've done to actually make these things work, to which here comes whatever the next iteration of platform would possibly be. And you'll know how to fold in your business into that platform already, because you'll know the rules of how do you actually navigate that person from point A to point B. That's what this course is all about. In addition to that, some of the cool bonuses, I love doing, quote, done for you advertising campaigns. So I'm actually workshopping now so I can actually give them out, because I'm not just going to create it and say, here you go, hope it works. But I'm actually doing some specific campaigns, both online and offline, that you're going to get the rights to actually use within your own business. So really, as soon as you're back home after the convention, you can start to use some tested systems for yourself that already have been workshopped and proven to work.
Brilliant. I want to bring up a point that you talked about, the balloon animal. It always reminds me of the movie with Steve Martin, The Jerk. Remember, he's in the circus, he's counting weights.
Yep.
And the people win. And he's like, you know what? You can get anything from this, right? He's like, you can have this eraser right here.
Pencil eraser to this item here. None of these things, but something over one of my favorite movies.
Get that. Now, yeah, the class sounds amazing. So it's a 2-day class. Is it 2 or 3 day? 2 day,
2
right?
days.
Is it possible that you can list off, so I know you gave an overview, is it possible you could list off maybe 5 specific things that people are going to learn, or specific techniques or strategies?
Yeah.
Just kind of like,
there's a magical understanding that the real value in a business, and this can be highly technical as I've done it, or it can be very highly non-technical, but a lot of the value of a business comes down to one specific asset, your list. And your list could be whether it's emails or mailing addresses, phone numbers, but to have that ability, and this comes back to a concept of lead generation marketing. There's branding, and we know that if we see the swoosh, that's Nike. We know that if we see product, do I have anything in here that's white? We see white headphones, we know that's going to be Apple. Branding is something that admittedly marketing people will try to sell you that we can do branding for you. But for businesses the size of most hypnosis practices or even performers, branding is really hard to track. Most hypnotists are making the mistake of doing direct response marketing. Look at the number of hypnotist websites that say, call this number to book your sessions. I would tell you ethically and professionally, your potential client is not qualified yet to make that decision. So what I do, understand the magic phrase, if you're trying to sell something to everybody, you're really selling something to nobody. So I've structured my business in a way that people by various streams are basically raising their hand and saying, I'm interested. And then that's the specific group of people that I spend my marketing dollars on. That's the specific people that I'm getting in front of. So you asked for bullet points. We actually kind of indirectly covered a few of them. The list building strategies that I use to fill up my business. Admittedly, and I want you to hear this as a positive, Virginia Hypnosis as a live brick and mortar business with me there as the practitioner is in a place that I no longer have an interest in building that out bigger than it is right now. At one point, I had an associate staff, and I saw that I could do that, and I was good at it, but it wasn't within my long-term goals to continue on as a manager or even flesh out those systems. So I've since converted that extra practitioner room into a production studio because I'm interested in taking things now to a more global market. So here, the fact that I've actually had to do things in recent years to turn down the dial of the amount of business coming in for Virginia Hypnosis. Though I want you to consider this statement I'm about to make, and it's one that I looked up the other day with a coaching student of mine. I have a database that can track the people who have interacted with my content online, who have called me and not yet converted as clients. And if I wanted to turn business on right away, I looked. The number as of that day, actually, for people who had interacted in the span of the last 6 to 9 months was a little over 2,000 people. So all I'd have to do is produce some piece of valuable content, do a broadcast, in my case, email. I do a lot of email work to everybody who has already raised their hand and said, I'm interested. And this is a strategy that when I was working on building out Virginia Hypnosis, I would just rinse and repeat over and over. Hey, next week's kind of light. And I'd blast an email, the phone would ring, I would have business. So on one side, the list building strategies that continue to build rapport with your clients. Recognize too that not everybody who calls you is ready to book right away. And from a change perspective, there's something magical that happens when you're able to ask your client, hey, you filled out a form on my website 1.5 years ago and you're calling me today. What's different now? Whatever answer you get is going to be so critical to that process and sometimes tell you the issue you should be working on rather than the one they're calling on. That's going to be such magical, we'll call it hypno juice for your process. So the ability to maintain a relationship and navigate people through that system. So the list building, as well as the actual conversion strategies, how to actually book them as clients, but then also how to ethically and effectively motivate action to get them actually converting as clients. and to really build these systems of, rather than having customers, rather than having clients, instead producing raving fans. Notice that I've done my best in this little chunk of information to not really mention a lot in terms of platform, because these same strategies, again, what do you want, kid, a dog or a snake, are going to fit if you're building a social media presence, are going to work if you're doing webinars and selling that way, are going to work the same way if you're at the Chamber of Commerce, the Rotary Group, and getting up and giving a talk. Business is business. So the specific strategies, the actual, what I've now deemed the 500K phone script, because at the time I actually unpacked the strategy and began to teach it, here's an actual phone outline process that by the time I published it had booked more than $500,000 of private clients. You know, there are people who would say you can't make a living seeing only individual clients. If I stopped doing everything else I do beyond Virginia Hypnosis, I'd still be in a very, very good place. This stuff on the side makes it even gooder. You know, and just it becomes one of those best practices things. There are methods. Before we turned on the recording, and Tony and I were chatting about, at one point I was doing some sound design. So I'm one of these people that would go crazy if things are getting out of sync. But as much as I know how to do sound design, one of the biggest things I want you to take away from this course is how I've begun to work with a virtual team, how I've begun to duplicate myself. Again, remember, the platform is very rarely the issue. The issue is typically the strategy. And let me actually highlight, there's a guy in a Facebook group who was asking for, he was looking for a website person who could do funnel design, graphic design, programming, social media, and all these other things. And also understood the entertainment booking industry for hypnotists. My first real statement is if you could really find someone who can do that, chances are they're already out there dominating the market you want to be in. Such a person really doesn't exist. So for any project that I'm working on, I'm working with a massive virtual team of people. Here's my website designer. Here's my programmer. Here are several graphic people I can reach out to. Here's my woman who edits my podcast. Here's my person who does transcription for me. And this may sound expensive. When you know the right strategies, it's very affordable. And it's such a system that I'm no longer dependent upon one person. So a big takeaway is it sure looks like I'm doing a bunch of stuff, but it's more so that I know how to outsource. I know how to duplicate myself. So if you're getting to that point of, if you're already working and seeing clients and your business is always feeling like you're behind, I'm living a very relaxed lifestyle because I've developed the systems to navigate a team of outsourcers in such a way that life is a whole lot easier. So that's going to be a huge, huge takeaway, to learn those systems and really grow your business. I would credit that to how my actual income has doubled over the last couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like I've talked to you quite a bit. It seems like I hear a little echo in my ear. It seems like your automation makes it way easier.
Yeah, automation is a concept of just figuring out the system. And I encourage you to even do this, even as an action step, just from interacting with this content here. Start to play a game, whether it's a notepad or you want to get fancy and do a document on a computer. Whenever you're approaching a part of your business that you recognize as repetitive in nature, take note of that, you know, and just do whatever is possible to find a system to make that so much easier. I'd give an example of a local hypnotist in my area. When I first met her, she goes, "Oh, but it's so much work to confirm a new client. I have to write out the message and give them directions to my office, and just sending out that confirmation on its own takes about 15 minutes. To which I have really cool software that I'm using that does a lot of that for me, but realize that could have been a Word document. You just copy and paste every single time. Problem solved. My favorite piece, I'll give you a quick tip on outsourcing. My favorite piece of instruction is, quote, "Make me one like this." And maybe here for the first time, I can reveal an example of that, which I believe I've already told Scott about this. Go to htlive2016. And if you go there, there's a navigation bar that was really cool, and it travels with you as you scroll down. And I saw that and went, "Oh, that's awesome. I don't know how to do that." And also go to hypnoticbusinessmastery.com, the actual page for this upcoming event. And oh, look at that. There's a navigation bar at the top that as you scroll down, it stays with you. I had seen that on so many other websites, and it's not ripping off in any way, but I was able to find someone's website who had something that I go, wow, that's cool. That'd be a nice feature on this site. And I didn't have to know how to do that. I just sent it out to one of my programmers to go, hey, can you put that on my website? And he did it for me. So I would comfortably sit here right now and tell you I have no idea how the hell that thing works. Discovering my secrets there, Antonio?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
The audio's kind of cutting out.
Yeah.
I'm only discovering the secrets that you want me to discover, not the other ones that you're keeping tucked away behind that curtain.
It's a bunch of kids.
We'll keep those back there. Yeah, it's been great catching up with you. I can't wait for Vegas. It's going to be very fun. And for people that are watching this, I'm sure our millions of audience members combined, if you go to htlive.net, you can learn about the conference. You can sign up. Definitely sign up for it. It's every year has been absolutely wonderful. I want to thank Scott Sandlin, Richard Rumble, and Richard Clark, and everybody else for the amazing conference they put on. Now, what I would like for you to do, I think I've done this before. It's been a while. A lot of interviews now. I'm wanting the person I'm interviewing, the interviewee, to basically do hypnosis session.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want, like, however you want to aim it or gear it.
Absolutely.
Go ahead and do it.
I'd love to. And I'll give you kind of the pre-talk to this, which would be that one of the big takeaways from Hypnotic Business Mastery that I mentioned is that as a profession, I think across the board, we're all thinking much too small about what we're capable of doing. So to increase that reach, to think even bigger about what's possible. I have a quick reference to the resource that we mentioned before, and I'll do something kind of fun here too. If you go to worksmarthypnosis.com/Hawaii, I'll get one of my team to transcribe that little segment that I did about the client responsibility, but also I'll give you access to the presentations I did in years past at HypnoThoughts Live, specifically on selling with online videos, which could be something, again, I'm always of the no cost to low cost strategy. Chances are you have an amazing video camera already that actually I've got a lot of great content that I've done with my phone. And it's done in a style that just completely disarms any fears people would have about the process. So again, worksmarthypnosis.com/Hawaii will send you that resource of the client responsibility transcript, plus the 2 talks from years past all about online videos. The online video ones from last year has a fun title. The first taste is free. Selling with online videos.
That's bad. Hey,
I know. As a person who grew up with horrible asthma and has been afraid to smoke anything my entire life. So yeah, clean living. As soon as I pass 30, anything beyond 1 alcoholic beverage, and I'm falling asleep now too. So made the weight loss a whole lot easier too. So the obvious disclaimer, this moment is hypnotic in nature. So if you're interacting with this in a place where your attention should be given to something else, you may listen analytically. If you're in a safe, comfortable place that it's appropriate to close your eyes, feel free to do so. And just simply...
Hey, Jason.
Yeah.
Let me back up real quick. You know how you're offering the talks from previous year? Is it possible we could use that almost as a way, as a bonus for people that sign up to that actually register for HT Live?
Sure. Yeah. Actually, I think one of them, I'm not sure which one, but I know giveaway of many of the presentations from last year already, and I know one of mine was in there. It might have been the video. It might have also been the social media one, though the side note is, and I say this with full confidence, the quality of my recording is better because I'm the one who travels to a convention with full studio equipment. So yeah, absolutely. We can make that available too. Because I'm the one who I shot at full 1080p high def and studio quality sound. So yeah, we'll make that available.
You're such a marketing nerd and nerd like me. So everybody listening to this, like you said, we'll do some kind of bonus. So if you register to HT Live, contact him. You could contact me, but then I got to contact him. You better off just contact
hearing
him
this
directly.
again, just go to worksmarthypnosis.com/Hawaii and you'll get the same content.
Yep.
Yep. Ready for the hypno?
Fire away. Yep.
Awesome.
Beam me up, Scotty.
So I tell you what, just take this moment now and just get yourself into a comfortable position. And just take a nice deep breath in. And go ahead now, if you haven't done yet already, just let those eyelids close on down. And just simply bring your attention to your body, occupying space wherever you are right now. It's an interesting phrase that I can share with you to even bridge our way into this process. An interesting phrase that I hope will stay with you, that some of the most successful people you meet are completely out of their minds. Because they're out of their minds and into their bodies. They're listening to their feelings, their sensations. So such as right now, only because I direct your attention to it. Just bring your awareness to your feet. Maybe notice the temperature of your feet, the position of your feet, and however they are. And of course, if you ever need to move them, that just helps you to guide yourself to a deeper place of calm, focus, and ability. For no other reason except that I direct your attention to it, you can notice the feeling of your hands. You know, one of the definitions of a hypnotic trance is simply that moment where internal focus carries more meaning than external focus. So like right now, only you can notice if your left hand is more comfortable than your right, or if your right is more comfortable than your left, or if they're about the same, and it really doesn't matter. Or even perhaps the feeling of the chair or whatever objects are beneath you, just reminding you you're safe and secure, and noticing from this point forward that every natural breath helps to guide you deeper down. That's right. Because I could tell you to go ahead and relax your entire body, but that's really not that necessary. For right now, again, focus your attention. Bring your thoughts to your eyelids. Just your eyelids. Some of the smallest muscles in your face, definitely some of the smallest muscles in your body. As go ahead now and just simply relax those eyelids all the way down to that place where you know you can make them just not work. As if they're powered off like a TV, as if they can just shut down like a computer. So that even if you were to try to open them, they just relax even further down. And when you know that you have made them that good and relaxed, go ahead now, test them, satisfy yourself. You can make them just not work. Try, they just relax even further down. Try to open them, they just relax even further. Good, and quit testing. And take that quality of comfort, let it now begin to ripple and spread throughout your entire body. Just noticing now how every natural breath consistently follows the one before. You never have to remind yourself to breathe. Your body naturally knows what to do. You never have to sit there and remind your heart to beat. Your heart already knows how to work as well as it does. Perhaps by the time of listening and interacting with this material, maybe you've already had something to eat today, and you never have to think to yourself, body, digest now, how so many things are wonderfully hypnotic in nature, wonderfully automatic and unconscious on their own. And take this moment now, take this experience now, and simply realize that the body is such a mechanism that wants to move. It craves momentum. The body naturally grows as we age. And whether you've had this experience or not, it's interesting to watch even a baby, an infant, sleep. How their body begins to make these little micromuscular movements, these little twitches, as if you could actually watch that child grow. So as people, we have this wonderful ability to grow up, to grow out of old behaviors, out of old needs. Just because something was one way before is no reason it has to be that way now. As the investment world would say, past performance need not indicate future results. In fact, the body you are in right now is different than the one you've ever been in before. Down to the cellular, the biological levels of your body, you are an amazing network of cells that are multiplying, dividing, and growing at such a pace that you never have to think about it. It just works on its own. So as if we can take this moment right now and tap into that natural momentum you have of growth and begin to harness that, begin to make use of that. And like a computer, simply copy and paste, simply click and drag, make use of that expertise that you already have to begin to grow in your career, to begin to grow in your profession, to begin to grow as that artist making use of what you do, to begin to reach far beyond, to be able to be in that place as if there you are. Perhaps it's already 5 years from now, as if you can look into that place in your future and remember how well you will have done. To look back along that arc and really discover the skills, the abilities, the lives you've touched, the audiences you've reached, the name, the voice you have created, the differences, whether they're personal changes, whether they're audience members laughing and applauding. That ability to reach far beyond the physical confines of a single room, a single client at a time, or even a single audience, to begin to increase your reach even further and really begin to achieve that mastery, as if now becoming that person of action, to position yourself in such a way that the principles, the strategies become everything. That no matter the platform, no matter the environment, even so, no matter the product, having the understanding now to navigate that person to a place of solution and to create these changes, to touch these lives, to make these wonderful changes. Now, in a moment, I'm going to count from 1 to 3. And at the count of 3, you can easily find your full attention coming back to the space that you're in, feeling good, feeling refreshed, ready to take action. As 1, perhaps already your body wanting to move and adjust, fingers and toes already wanting to move around and bend. As 2, beneath those eyelids, the eyes clearing, as if like a sense of energy flowing through your body, as if perhaps maybe an epiphany, a discovery or two flowing through the mind, giving you inspiration for the days ahead. As that's right, 3, let those eyes open up, feeling good, feeling refreshed, ready to take action, ready to move forward now. And you do feel good, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I don't know who gets more benefit out of these podcasts, if HypnoThought, my audience, or me, because I feel incredible right now.
Hey, I'm similar on that. I used to do a lot of guest trainings in my area. And admittedly, I brought in the people that, if you follow the arc of when I started doing that, it was when I had kids. And it was more difficult to travel up to New York or travel somewhere for an event. So I got very greedy. And I would bring people to my office that I wanted to hang out and learn from. So, I mean, I could fly out to Seattle and hang out with Roy Hunter, or I brought Roy Hunter to my office and did a class for about 25 people.
You just said something that disturbed me. You said when you had kids.
When
you still have them.
I still do. They're still around. Is there a photo? Yes, there's proof. They're right there. When I went from not having kids to then having kids.
Okay. So, okay.
Yes,
that makes sense.
When children entered my day-to-day lifestyle, how's that for you?
They just showed up from the sweatshop, and they're not in the sweatshop now, right?
Delivered. We're going to probably have them renewed for another season. They're getting good ratings.
Oh, Honey Boo
Boo. Don't talk about that.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, please don't put your kids in any kind of thing.
No, no. My wife and I, as a side note, you'll love this. My wife and I originally were both involved in careers in professional theater. She was a designer and a scenic painter, and I was on the management side. So it was my job to make everybody get along. So we both were around a whole lot of that. And maybe my skill of organizing Excel documents and tracking productions and doing flying scenery and all that automation spilled over to how I do my business nowadays and what I now train. Though it's fun because, oh, do you think your kids will follow in your footsteps would be the question from family members. And there we were with like Claire when she was maybe 2 or 3 months old, and like, engineering is a lot of fun. You want to be an engineer. You can be a scientist. Keeping them away from the artistic careers.
Let's say on a side note, I'm not going to get too involved in it. You see a lot of my Facebook posts. With hypnosis, there's a lot of people that are, I'm not going to say ignorant of the sciences, but there's a lot of people that are scared of science nowadays.
Yeah.
Science is good. I'm sorry. Not all modern medicine is the best thing on the planet, but hey, I like being able to go to the doctors. Like when I had my kidney stone a year and a half ago, I was like, this hurts. Give me something. Feels like I'm getting stabbed.
You didn't try positive thinking? That didn't get that thing out of you?
No. Actually,
Yeah.
I did use,
no, it's from the evolutionary mindset that the things that are still around because it's a society we found they work. So to practice in the sandbox, and this is a good lesson. And I give you the backstory on this real quick. There's a person in my local area who I run a local meetup group. And if you're in the Northern Virginia, DC, Maryland area, go to northernvirginiahypnosis.com. And of course, that redirects over to meetup.com for my local group. It's at another local meetup that someone got up and I'm referencing a quote that was then reiterated, so it may be a little off. Oh, and I have all sorts of clients who have been convinced by psychologists that they're crazy and they just make them worse. This person speaking did not realize that she had 4 psychologists in the room. When meanwhile, I have ongoing working relationships with several psychologists and even psychiatrists, counselors, all other helping professions. When we work from that position that we all have a right to be in the sandbox, we all do better. And it's also a place where sometimes something calls in and I see it's not the best fit for what I do. And then I have resources I can share with that individual to get them to that change even faster. And when you get sick, we don't cut your arm open and have you bleed the sickness out into a bucket, because as a society, we figured out that that doesn't work anymore. So we stopped doing that. I mean,
it never worked.
Yeah. Well, I'd reference that. There's a moment where I was teaching a hypnosis certification class, and I showed a video of Ron Esslinger out of Tennessee. And he's working with this woman in this video where she's pregnant, and he references when you deliver that baby, whether you have the epidural or don't use the epidural. And there were people in my audience who were offended by that because they're saying, oh, he recommended she do a medical birth. To which I had to intervene and go, you realize the epidural is a procedure that is used for things other than childbirth, right? You realize that there are babies who are alive. There are mothers who are alive today because that was the method that was needed to get that into use. I'd expand this conversation in a longer format. I'll shorten it here. I had a client who one time he walked in the door wanting to convince me that he smoked because he was bipolar. He walked out the door convincing himself that because he's bipolar, he no longer has to smoke. He utilized something that was a part of him. That sometimes when I've told the longer version of that story, I get people getting caught up in the content of the story rather than the context, because they're going, oh, that's a made up thing. It's like, well, as much as people can argue that that specific condition is overdiagnosed, we can also argue it's probably underdiagnosed as well. And my wife, who's 1 floor above me in our home right now, would not be alive today if it were not for an epidural. So maybe I'm sorting through my own positive emotional baggage here. But it's where, when we look at, it goes back to that return a hammer to Home Depot. The tool is only as good as it's put into use. It's like if someone's been to a hypnotist before and they didn't have good results. Well, have you gotten a bad haircut before? What did you do? You went somewhere else. As I'm now noticing, I seem to be a little uneven up top here. In my feet here. Yeah. Then again, I'm a few years from shaving it all off and pretending, oh, that's what I really wanted to do. I've outlived most of the Paul McKenna in my family. Yeah.
We'll just start calling you Paul McKenna.
Yeah. Or anyone who does
it. True.
No, so it's that greater picture mindset that when we look at it from more of that evolutionary mindset, are things overdone? Are they underdone? Absolutely. I mean, I'll shorten the story, but here's a moment where I had a student in a class. Every single break, Jason, I have this twitching issue with my eye. Could you hypnotize me to make it go away? Now, I knew this guy was wearing contacts and he also wore reading glasses. So what can I assume? He had an eye doctor. So what's the obvious low-hanging fruit? Have you mentioned your eye twitching to your doctor? Oh, no, I'm not going to go to him for that. He's going to convince me I'm crazy and put me on meds. It's like, well, your eye doctor isn't qualified to diagnose you or put you on meds. It just seems like the more obvious visit. The end of the story. Well, I told him eventually I will work with you for free to overcome your eye twitching issue after you've been to your eye doctor. He did not have to sit down at the eye doctor appointment. Now, this is a little weird, but he goes in and the doctor goes, oh, which eye? Doctor reaches over, picks up the eyelid, looks inside and goes, oh, pluck. He had fallen asleep with his contacts in and one had been wedged up there for about 2 weeks.
Ow!
As lovely as that sounds. So I'm convinced there's no amount of hypnotic suggestion that would have solved that issue. There was an obvious place he should have been. Now, likewise, do we have other categories where that's not the case? Yes, we have some of the best research on helping someone to quit smoking. We have outstanding results with overcoming fear. So there's exceptions to this little rant that we've gone off on here. But from working from this, we all have a right to be in the sandbox together. It's how I have wonderfully misinterpreted the title of Melissa Tears's awesome book, Integrative Hypnosis. She refers to as integrative hypnosis as I'm integrating other modalities into my hypnosis. She does NLP, she does coaching, she does EFT. And my perception is that we should never be positioned as alternative. I hate that so much. Maybe we can be complementary. I'd rather see us become integrative with everything else that is out there. And by doing that, that's how we actually advance our profession. My mission statement behind everything in business is the more we're all successful, the more we're all successful. The one thing it's going to take for hypnosis to really grow is for more of us to be out there working. So that's why I do these workshops. That's why I'm teaching hypnoticbusinessmastery.com before the convention. That's the real purpose behind this, to get this success out there, to spread this story and really just get these great results and really advance what we do.
Guys, it's been great. I'm going to add one last thing. I don't know if I told you this story, talking about not hypnotizing somebody. Well, especially for me, like anything to do with pain, I never, ever touch. Like I said, I don't really have a practice right now, but I've done things. I've helped I'm sorry, just friends with certain things quit smoking, pain here and there, as long as it's, if I know, let's say if they, maybe they bumped into something and it's sore. So long story short, I was doing street hypnosis at this local art festival, and I think I hypnotized somebody, just did some basic phenomenon. This girl came up and said that she had a headache and she wanted to see if hypnosis could help with a headache. And I'm like, look, I don't know if there's something more, major that's going on. You need to talk to a doctor, give me a referral. So I asked her, and keep in mind, there's some kind of sparkle in her eye that made me think that she was kind of out to lunch. So I asked her, like, so tell me, what's causing these headaches? What do you think? She's like, well, you see, there's these satellites in outer space. Right at that level, I knew where it was going. She's like, and they're beaming these beaming these messages into my head. She's like, what should I do? In the back of my head, I'm like, you should probably take Risperidone. Although I can't prescribe medicine for borderline, it sounds like the best path.
We should always be cautious around even labeling anything. There's a guy who called me up one time, and we haven't mentioned the Work Smart Hypnosis podcast. It's a podcast that I do. I got to get you on that too, Antonio. It's a free resource. Just go over to worksmarthypnosis.com. That's the actual site I've referenced. But actually, in the episode I did with Chris Jones, the guy who got Howie Mandel to shake hands on America's Got Talent, you can head over to that session, and there's a whole story I tell about a guy who calls me up, and I've got voices in my head, and they're getting a little violent. And it's basically how I parlayed that moment in such a way to send him to someone who I felt would be a better fit. In this case, a local psychiatrist who that's one of his specialties. And the phrasing was, oh yeah, I think I can help you out with that, though I think my friend Jeff can do it better. Do you want Jeff's number? Not referencing Jeff as Dr. So-and-so. That by doing it in that way, he took that next step and got the help he needed. But he's someone who called me up a few months later and went, if you had told me you were referring me to a shrink or a med doctor, I probably wouldn't have followed up on it. So thank you for that. This is a place that, of all people, I've learned one of my favorite lines that I use in that sort of scenario from Scott Sandland about the line of, would you like if I can do something to give you some comfort between now and when you get care for that as soon as possible? Which is linking the temporary comfort. You're labeling it as temporary comfort. So I use that for a friend who was having pain in his abdomen, which normally we should not touch because in his case, it was a ruptured appendix. But the phrase of, if there's something I can do to give you some temporary comfort between now and on your way to the hospital. So admittedly, 5 minutes together, I did something. He's now in the back of someone else's car. He's at the hospital 20 minutes later. So it's in that scenario that would be a place where I would work on the quote undiagnosed issue, but I would be linking it directly to getting the appropriate care. Because in this case, again, I mean, the eye twitching was a mild inconvenience. The appendicitis issue could have been much, much bigger. So if there's something I can do to give you some temporary comfort between now and when you get the appropriate care for that, would you like that? Good. And credit Scott Sandland for that one.
Definitely. Always credit Scott Sandland. So I think we've covered everything. Let's see. Everybody that's listening, htlive.net, worksmarthypnosis.com, hypnoticbusinessmastery.com.
You got it.
That should be it. So look above or below this. You'll see a bunch of fancy text describing everything. And do me a favor, share this podcast, and I will see you in Vegas.
See you all soon.
Aloha, folks.